I'm Catherine Ross, and I'm here live from the floor of the NYSE. Jim Cramer is off at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference in San Francisco, so joining me is Jeff Marks, Senior Portfolio Analyst at Action Alerts Plus. Jeff, we got a signed trade deal, and now we're seeing the market hit all new record highs. So what's the most important thing for investors to watch?
Well, so I think, yes, it's a lot of optimism from this trade deal. It's really fueling markets right now, but at the same time, it's earnings, and I think that's really the key to keep this rally going. This morning, we saw strong numbers out of Morgan Stanley. Taiwan Semi had some good numbers to say, and Apple's a huge customer there, so I think that's really important for the market as well, because Apple being the largest company in the world, in the U.S. by market cap. Then we also have Bellwether, CSX reporting tonight, and there's so many important companies reporting next week. So I think as long as the earnings continue to come in good, better than expected, and CEO, the tone on conference calls is much more confident than where we were, say, 6 months ago, then I think that's what investors should be focusing on.
I'm glad that you mentioned Morgan Stanley, which is our real money stock of the day, so head on over to realmoney.com if you want to read more about it, because the banks have kind of across the board blown it out of the water when it comes to earnings, which leads me to wonder how is the rest of the sector is going to look.
Yeah, so just thinking about the banks for a minute, I mean, we've been discussing every single one as they reported this week on this show. And one of the things I said when Citi and JP Morgan reported is that their numbers really show that the way the numbers come out is they favor the bigger banks over the smaller banks. So yes, so the good numbers have been coming from these large caps. And a lot of it's been fee-based too. So we saw good numbers out of Goldman Sachs yesterday. Morgan Stanley followed that up today. And a lot of it has to do with this higher levels of client activity. Those are going to be the fees. So to me, I think that the read-through, the first one that I would look for is, the natural read-through is fintech, credit card networks. Visa, MasterCard. So we saw healthy card activity out of Citigroup and JP Morgan, and they're obviously the big banks behind those types of credit cards. And I think at the same time with the trade deal yesterday, you have the Chinese market opening up to these credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard. So I know that group's not cheap. I know that they've had extraordinary runs over the last several years. But I think that's one that can continue to work in this environment because of what we're seeing from the consumer and the opening up of the Chinese markets.
XPO announced after the bell Wednesday that it was looking into exploring spinning off or selling certain units. And I know that Jim Cramer had the CEO over on Mad Money last night.
Yeah.
But based on what we're seeing, especially the stock reaction out of XPO, is this a good thing for them?
Well, yeah, I think it's a good thing for shareholders. So, you referenced the interview last night. If you watched it, CEO Brad Jacobs, he was unhappy, and he was unhappy with the multiple that his stock is getting. This is a stock. It's up a significant amount in the past year. Today, obviously, but it's still well off its highs. And I think that he's unhappy with the discounted multiple that the company that the market has been putting on the stock, because what he's saying, and Jacobs is such a smart guy. He is such a great eye for identifying fragmented markets and consolidating the industry around it. And he did it in waste, he did it in equipment rentals with URI, and he's doing it with XPO. And as he mentioned last night, XPO is a top 10 performing stock in the Fortune 500 over the past decade. So his track record speaks for itself. And this actually kind of reminds me of a story we saw back in 2017 when there was an unsubstantiated rumor that XPO could be bought by Home Depot, who wanted to buy it because they didn't want Amazon to get it. And I remember this so well because we actually owned XPO at the time for Action Alerts Plus, but we sold it on the news because we knew Jacobs as more of a seller, as a buyer than a seller of his company. Well, now we're seeing that change in direction, right? So now he's saying he's interested in perhaps selling a company, perhaps spinning off a company to unlock that multiple. So I think it's good for shareholders. The only question now is, will today's rally kind of get ahead of what he's trying to, what value he can unlock at the company?
Now, Apple is reportedly going to buy a small AI startup. And I guess my question here, Jeff, is does this actually matter? Or are investors just going to forget this within a week?
Yeah, I don't know too much about the startup that they acquired, and the $200 million price tag to me is kind of like it's just a drop in the bucket for a company of Apple's size. And at the same time, we know Apple to be very hush-hush about some of the deals that they make, especially this one. So I'm not sure how much stock I would put into it. Instead, I would focus more on the AirPods, which seem to be the winner this holiday season, the growing services stream, and of course the 5G launch expected later in the year.
Have you tried the AirPods Pro?
I have not tried it. I want it. I can't get my hands on them. I am still working on wireless Beats headphones, also made by Apple, that I've had for years. I'm also still working on an iPhone 7 Plus that I've had for a few years. I've been holding out for the 5G phone later this year. My battery time doesn't like that. I think my battery's already at like 50% this morning, just because of all the activity I've done, on my phone this morning. But I'm holding out for that. But I mean, Apple as a consumer product company is extraordinary. So, do I see myself getting the AirPods in the future? I sure hope so. I mean, they're cool. I like them. Again, I'm just one who likes to hold on to what I have until the very last minute. So, but yeah.
You could do a double whammy, upgrade to the 5G phone and get the AirPods Pro, and then you'll be very high tech.
Well, I'll have to also use the Apple Card in that instance so I can get some form of a discount back.
Exactly. All right, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We are now heading over to our Action Alerts Plus daily rundown show over on actionalertsplus.com. Head on over there with us. I'm Catherine Ross, and we'll see you tomorrow.